countries who weaken other countries in a 50 to 100 year plan by sending people into the other countries, like I said, natural disasters, people's parents who have professions that are not easy to find workers in the particular country, or maybe the workers in that country who apply for these positions never have their resume received, or ever make proper contact, or slander campaigns get passed around about them, especially if they're not right under the nose of the potential employer. Wasn't where I was going with this, but it's easy to set up a situation where people move into another country. I mean, before we moved up here, whatever was going on, Chris had enough at IOC, or something him was saying. He did, when you get the feeling like, I'm sick and I want to go home. It's not really a feeling, it's a Zeppelin. Try not to faint. It's in the Bible, you did not faint. You refrained from fainting. When I was at school, I would start to lose my voice, and I would just keep going and going and going, because it is so much easier to be there and to teach and to keep your students the same way with a child, to be present where your children are, to be present where your students are, to give them security, to give them a sense of a cohesive program. Sure, you worry about substitutes and them finding positions. I myself was a substitute for a half a year at Labrador, and I loved getting a call to come over and replace someone. But some of the times that I was called to replace someone, and some of the times in the end when not so much with me, but they were what they would call burnt out or just too tired to come in. But sometimes that's, the weight of the Zeppelin through and in you, and the voice of the Zeppelin in your head before we understood to separate that from our own conscious. We didn't understand cell phones and sound waves as well back then. And besides that, there are workshops, and our school in particular often held workshops for different departments in the school and different groups in the school, and had substitutes come in to give them, a day or a half a day, in our school at least. But when I was teaching and would start to develop what felt like a pile of bad lung tissue in my lungs, like the practically degenerated, practically rotted away lung tissue of, sadly, a smoker who had smoked for years, which is a sad and scary habit that we've almost, eradicated on our earth due to knowledge. It was as if my vocal box had become covered over, and eventually I couldn't fight it anymore, and I had to, what felt like, and I'm only using symbolism, it's not mental, it's, if you watch a higher level television programming, people use these things it felt as if you watched comedy shows from years ago, from the 90s and the 80s, this sort of symbolism was very prominent in comedy. But it was as if I was coughing up the rotting lungs of, my outer smoker, I guess, because there was no way that was inside of me all the time. And I had never touched a cigarette in my life to smoke it. Only take pictures to, show how silly I look to my mother, and why I don't smoke, one of the reasons. But as I was cleaning the car this morning, I was just thinking about the world in general, and how when we lived at home, when I grew up, most people I knew, the family, they took holidays together. But as I started meeting, through Chris, his friendship group, or people he knew, a lot of the people he knew, often from foreign countries, and I'm not being anything but conducting a little bit of a research study in my own life as to what I see and trends that I notice, take separate holidays. When the man and woman live in one roof and seem to raise children together, or have people come in to look after the children, and then take separate holidays, how can that not come into your home if you become so close with them that you have no other friendship grouping besides them, after a while they swallow you up like a single white female. And is it not possible, if we do find that they're all from a particular group, and you can't not look at it as a citizen of an allied country. It is your responsibility to maintain your borders and your freedom and your security. Could they not be infiltrates setting up a new societal norm, but not really be couples? In this day and age, with all the rights of not having to reveal your gender in the workplace, could some of them not actually be just two men or two women? I'm not comfortable with it anymore, and I've lived with it for some time. And I didn't have a problem with it before I had it so close to my home and my child.